It began with a signal, one humanity had never seen before, a message far too complex to be a mere glitch in the fabric of space. The first transmission arrived without warning, cutting through all Earth's communication systems. Governments scrambled to interpret it, scientists were mystified by its structure, and ordinary people stared at their screens, unsure whether they were witnessing a historic event or the beginning of something far worse. The signal, once decoded, was clear and concise. It was a message from the Tyrex, a race of beings unlike anything humanity had encountered. Their message was simple: we offer you a place in the stars. We ask for your cooperation, and in exchange, we will protect you from the forces that threaten the galaxy. All we require is a blood price. At first, there was disbelief. Humanity had long speculated about the existence of extraterrestrial life, but this was different. This wasn't an offer of friendship or peaceful exploration. The Tyrex didn't want to know us. They wanted something from us. The message was broadcast worldwide, and it didn't take long for Earth's leaders to convene. The United Nations held an emergency summit, as did the heads of the most powerful nations. The Tyrex promised incredible technology, energy sources that could power the world for millennia, weapons that could defend against any foe. Yet the price for these gifts was a chilling one. Every year, a number of humans, chosen at random, would be given to the Tyrex as tribute. These would not be prisoners of war, criminals, or soldiers. The Tyrex demanded lives, no more, no less. Earth's leaders balked. How could they accept such an agreement? But as discussions raged, a darker truth settled in. Rejecting the Tyrex meant rejecting everything they offered. And the Tyrex made it clear that rejection would have consequences. Humanity was faced with a choice: to remain isolated, vulnerable to the dangers of the unknown universe, or to accept the offer of the Tyrex and give them what they demanded, minus 10,000 lives. The debate was heated, but in the end, Earth's leaders made a decision that would forever alter the course of human history. The United Nations ratified the agreement. A global coalition was formed to manage the selection process, and soon the first victims were chosen. A chilling calm took hold of the planet as humanity awaited the arrival of the Tyrex. They came not with a fleet of ships or armies, but with a single vessel, a sleek, silver craft that hovered above major cities, its presence like a silent judgment. No one could hide. No one could run. The Tyrex enforcers were quick, their technology allowing them to strike without warning, their soldiers faceless and merciless. In every country, families huddled together, terrified. The world watched as a new dark era began. Every day, the numbers of the chosen grew. No one knew the reasoning behind the selections, whether it was truly random, or if the Tyrex were picking those who would hurt humanity the most. It didn't matter. The blood price had been paid. The reality was unbearable. Those who lost loved ones were told to accept their fate. The government called it a sacrifice for the survival of the species. Some people began to believe in the Tyrex's promise of protection. Others, however, began to question the deal. The first payment of the blood price was over. Humanity had taken its first steps into a galaxy governed by forces they did not understand. And for the first time, people began to wonder whether survival, if it came at such a cost, was worth the price. The world had never felt more like a cage. The Tyrex had come and gone, their dark ships descending from the heavens with an eerie calm. The first payment had been made, minus 10,000 people were gone, sacrificed to an unknown force. Families shattered, cities frozen with grief. But the Tyrex, inscrutable in their power, remained silent, their presence hovering like a shadow across the globe. The first week after the sacrifice, life on Earth felt like it was on the brink of collapse. The weight of the event loomed large. Nations tried to go back to normal, but how could anyone pretend that this was normal? How could they ignore the bodies, the empty spaces where loved ones had once stood? In every corner of the world, people mourned, but also began to question. How many more would be taken? What was the true cost of cooperation with these extraterrestrial beings? For the majority, however, the answer wasn't a question, it was a bitter fact. The Tyrex had made their power known, and with it, the fragile threads of humanity's control had snapped. The governments of Earth, despite their initial hesitation, now moved with a cold efficiency. They began to organize the second payment, not out of desire, but necessity. There was no escape. To defy the Tyrex would mean the annihilation of entire civilizations. Elena Graves, a decorated military officer with a once promising future, found herself at the heart of the decision-making process. A member of Earth's emergency coalition, Elena had seen the first payment up close. She had watched as families were torn apart, as soldiers were ordered to deliver their own to the Tyrex without question. The pain of it all was etched deep into her soul. But even worse was the resignation that had settled over everyone. In their eyes, she saw it. Acceptance. Humanity had become complicit in the sacrifice. Still, there were whispers. Resistance began to stir in the shadows. Elena, though disillusioned, felt a fire that could not be extinguished. She could no longer stand by as millions were forced to accept the status quo. She knew that the only way to stop this madness was to take action, to break the chains that the Tyrex had bound humanity with. But how could she do it? How could she fight against an enemy that seemed unstoppable? Weeks passed, and the Tyrex made no further demands. They watched. They waited. Their ships remained in orbit, silent and imposing. The world continued to move, as though nothing had changed, but Elena could see it for what it truly was, an illusion. The first payment had been a test, a trial run to see how far Earth would bend. They were calculating, patient, knowing that the next payment would be the real test of humanity's resolve. And when the second payment was announced, the horror of it hit hard. The number of sacrifices would increase. More lives, more blood. The world braced for impact, as governments confirmed that the random selection process would begin again. Panic began to ripple through the streets. People could no longer ignore the truth. They were slaves to the will of the Tyrex. But Elena couldn't stand it anymore. One night, when the decision was made public, she met with a small group of like-minded soldiers, scientists, and civilians, those who still refused to accept the blood price. "We need to fight back," Elena said, her voice steely. "We can't let them take any more. We have to find a way to destroy them." Her words hit hard, stirring something in those who listened. There was no guarantee of success, no way to predict the outcome. But for the first time in months, Elena saw a spark in their eyes. The war had begun, whether they were ready or not. The next day, the Tyrex's emissaries arrived once again, their ships casting long shadows over the Earth, and humanity, torn between survival and rebellion, was forced to face a new terrifying question. Was it too late to change their fate? The first steps toward rebellion were small, almost invisible, but they were there. Elena's group, now a growing underground movement, operated in the shadows, their every action cloaked in secrecy. There were no banners or rallies, no public speeches. Instead, they communicated through encrypted channels, using old military tactics and the remnants of a broken internet to coordinate their strikes. For every sabotage operation they conducted, for every Tyrex surveillance system they crippled, the resistance grew. And with it, the realization dawned. Humanity would never accept its fate without a fight. The Tyrex had underestimated the resolve of the human spirit. For all their power, their alien intelligence, they had failed to understand one thing. The drive to survive was not just a biological imperative. It was a force that could never be extinguished. No amount of fear, no threats of total annihilation, could erase the spark of defiance that had been kindled within humanity's heart. Elena led the charge, her mind constantly shifting between strategy and desperation. The Tyrex were no longer just invaders. They were captors, and every moment that humanity spent under their thumb brought them closer to irreparable devastation. It wasn't just about freedom anymore. It was about survival. The underground group had expanded beyond Alina's original circle. Scientists, engineers, former soldiers, even civilians with no combat experience, all joined the fight. They shared one goal: to break the Tyrex's hold on Earth, no matter the cost. Some were motivated by vengeance, others by guilt for not standing up sooner. All were willing to sacrifice everything to prevent another year of the blood price. Among them was Dr. Ravi Singh, a brilliant physicist who had once worked for the Tyrex, studying the alien technology they had given Earth in exchange for compliance. He had seen firsthand the methods the Tyrex used to manipulate humanity, the subtle ways they had bent civilization to their will. Now he was working with the Resistance to uncover the true nature of their power, something that could turn the tide in their favor. "There's something we're missing," Dr. Singh told Elena one evening, poring over data from a recent raid on a Tyrex supply ship. "I've seen their technology. Their ships, their weapons, their energy sources. They're far beyond anything we can comprehend. But there's a pattern, something we've overlooked." Elena leaned in, her eyes narrowing. "What pattern?" Singh hesitated for a moment, as if the knowledge he was about to reveal might shift the foundation of everything they thought they knew. "The blood price. It's not just a demand. It's a ritual. Something larger is happening. I've seen them. The Tyrex, when they perform the blood price. They—" "Stop!" Elena cut him off, her voice sharp. "We need facts, not theories. What's the data telling us?" Singh hesitated but continued. I think the blood price isn't just a cosmic need for power. I believe they're using the sacrifices to maintain the very stability of the galaxy. I don't know how yet, but it's more than just an exchange. They're controlling something far greater." A heavy silence followed his words, as the weight of their implications settled over the room. If what Singh said was true, it meant humanity was no longer fighting for freedom alone. The stakes were even higher now. To stop the Tyrex would not just free Earth, it could determine the fate of the galaxy itself. The group had always known that the cost of resistance would be high, but no one had anticipated this. Was it possible that they were fighting for something much larger than themselves? That their battle was not just about the Tyrex's domination, but the very fabric of the universe? "We need a plan," Elena said, her mind already working overtime. "A big one. Something that can shake them to their core." But before she could formulate the next step, an explosion rocked the building, knocking them off their feet. The Tyrex had found them. The fight was on. The explosion was a deafening roar, its shockwave sending Elena and her team tumbling to the floor. The building shook as though it were a fragile toy, rattling under the force of the blast. Alarms blared in every corner, and dust filled the air, clouding their vision. Elena scrambled to her feet, disoriented but focused. The Tyrex had found them. This was no longer a secret war fought in the shadows. The Resistance had been exposed. "Move, now," Elena shouted, grabbing Dr. Singh by the arm and pulling him toward the exit. The rest of the team scrambled to gather their weapons, rushing toward the hidden passage they had prepared for moments like this. But it was too late. Tyrex soldiers were already pouring into the building, their sleek, armored forms moving with precision, as if they knew exactly where to go. "Go!" Elena ordered again, shoving Singh forward. She fired a few shots into the advancing Tyrex, but they barely flinched. Her bullets bounced off their armor with a cold, metallic clang. There was no time to waste. They had to get out, or all would be lost. The escape route was narrow, and Elena's heart raced as she led her team through the labyrinth of secret hallways beneath the building. The weight of their mission, of what they were fighting for, pressed heavily on her chest. They couldn't afford to fail. Not now. But as they rounded a corner, a cold voice stopped them in their tracks. "You've made a grave mistake, Elena Graves." The voice was soft, yet it cut through the chaos like a knife. Elena spun to find a Tyrex officer standing at the far end of the hallway. His pale, almost translucent skin seemed to shimmer under the dim light. His black eyes locked onto hers, and she could feel the chill of his gaze pierce her soul. "You're too late," the officer continued, his voice laced with a mocking tone. "The blood you've spilled, the lives you've taken in defiance of the blood price, it means nothing. You cannot win this war." Alina's pulse quickened. She recognized this officer. He was one of the Tyrex's higher-ranking commanders, a being who had only appeared once during their earlier operations. She had assumed he was simply a figurehead, a face of the Tyrex's authority. But now, as he stood before her, there was something different in his presence, something unsettling. "What do you mean?" Alina demanded, her voice cold as she aimed her rifle at him. "You're not invincible. We've already hit your infrastructure. We're not stopping." The officer smirked, his eyes flicking to the rest of the team before he looked back at her. "You think this is about power, about domination. You still don't understand, do you?" He stepped forward, and the walls seemed to close in on Alina as his words sank in. "The blood price is not a punishment. It is not merely a tool of control. It is the key to maintaining the very existence of your galaxy." The words struck Alina like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" she spat. The officer's smile widened. "The Tyrex were not the first to learn the secret of this universe's fragile balance. We were simply the first to master it. The blood price is necessary to stabilize the interdimensional energies that bind reality itself. Without it, the universe will collapse. The Tyrex have done what no other species has dared. We've kept the galaxy alive." A sickening silence filled the room. Alina's mind raced to process the officer's words. The sacrifices, humanity's blood price, were not a bargaining chip or a means of control. They were essential to the survival of the galaxy. The Tyrex weren't just tyrants. They were caretakers of a cosmic order, forced into a role they could never escape. "No," Alina breathed, disbelief thick in her voice. "You're lying. You can't expect us to. Do you think your petty resistance can change anything?" The officer interrupted. "Humanity's sacrifice is nothing compared to what's at stake. The universe is at war with itself, and without the blood price, it will fall apart." For the first time since she had joined the resistance, Alina felt the cold weight of hopelessness press down on her chest. Was the blood price really necessary? Was there any choice at all? Before she could react, the officer's expression shifted, his cold demeanor replaced by something darker, more calculating. "Your resistance will not succeed. We will find you, and we will continue to collect what is owed. But understand this, when your species is destroyed by the collapse, it will be because of your defiance, not our actions." As the officer spoke, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving Alina and her team in stunned silence. The weight of what they had just learned crushed her. Everything they had been fighting for, their rebellion, their defiance, was suddenly meaningless in the face of cosmic reality. Was there even a way to win now? The silence after the officer's departure was deafening. Alina stood frozen, the weight of his words pressing down on her like a 1,000-ton boulder. The resistance members around her, once full of fire and fury, now stood in stunned disbelief. Their cause, her cause, had been shaken to its very core. The officer's message had left an indelible mark on their minds. The blood price was not just a system of control or subjugation. It was a cosmic necessity, a forced equation that held the balance of the universe intact. Their struggle had just become a matter of survival, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy itself. Alina's mind swirled with the implications. "We need to regroup," Alina said, her voice hollow, almost mechanical. She had to refocus, to keep her team together. If they had any hope of changing the course of events, they would have to be united. But how could they fight when the stakes had changed so drastically? Dr. Singh, his face pale, was the first to break the silence. He's not lying, is he?" His voice trembled with disbelief. "What if this is true? What if we're just a cog in a much larger machine?" Alina's eyes narrowed, not at Singh, but at the realization that there was no longer a clear answer. The line between right and wrong, between justice and survival, had blurred in an instant. "We can't just accept it," Alina said. shaking her head. There has to be another way. Her words were defiant, but even she felt the tremor of doubt in her chest. How could she challenge a force that seemed to dictate the very fabric of existence? The Tyrex had known for centuries, perhaps millennia, what they were doing. They had carefully maintained the illusion of tyranny, masking their true purpose behind the threat of domination. And in doing so, they had manipulated the galaxy into submission, including humanity. The reality was this: there was no winning by their old standards. No matter how much blood they shed, no matter how many Tyrex ships they destroyed, the universe would never let them rest. Their rebellion, their resistance, would always be fighting against an inevitability. But Alina refused to believe it had to end this way. There had to be a way to survive, without paying the blood price. "We need to find their weakness," Alina said, her voice growing stronger. "Dr. Singh, you said the blood price was a ritual. Do you have any idea what it's tied to? Anything we can use to stop it?" Singh's brow furrowed as he thought, his mind racing through the data they had gathered from their attacks on Tyrex ships and facilities. "It's not just a ritual," he muttered, pacing. "It's a mechanism, something that connects to the very fabric of space-time. The Tyrex are controlling something far more dangerous than we've realized, something tied to quantum forces. The blood price is a stabilizer, but it's also a lever. If we can find the source of this mechanism, a way to destroy it." Elena interjected, a flicker of hope sparking in her chest. Singh nodded slowly. "Yes, but it won't be easy. The Tyrex have concealed it within their most heavily guarded installations, hidden in the deepest reaches of space." "We'll find it," Alina said, the steel returning to her tone. "We have to." But the more she thought about it, the more the enormity of their task set in. The Tyrex were not just alien invaders, they were custodians of a cosmic equilibrium. To disrupt their system would mean risking more than just their survival. It could bring about an intergalactic catastrophe. The cost of defiance had just become clearer. If they succeeded in destroying the mechanism, they might save humanity, but the universe itself might unravel. "We can't stop now," Alina said, turning to face her team. "We've come too far. The Tyrex may have control of the galaxy's balance, but they don't have control over us. We will find a way to end the blood price, no matter the cost." Her words rang out, each one sharper than the last, as if they were cutting through the weight of the revelation. For the first time in weeks, she felt a surge of clarity. There was no turning back. The path they had chosen was fraught with danger, but to live under the shadow of the Tyrex would be a death of a different kind, a slow, suffocating demise. And she couldn't bear that. Not for herself, not for humanity. With renewed resolve, Alina turned to her team, who nodded in agreement. Their journey was far from over, and the next phase of their mission would be their most dangerous yet. But Alina knew one thing for certain: they would never give up. They would fight for a future that no one, least of all the Tyrex, could take away. The days that followed were a blur of urgency and tension. Alina's resistance, though small, was now more determined than ever. With the knowledge that the Tyrex's control over the universe itself was tied to the blood price, their mission had transformed from a fight for freedom into a race against time to prevent galactic catastrophe. Dr. Singh had scored the data they'd gathered from previous raids, looking for any connection to the Tyrex's mysterious mechanism. But every clue they found only led to more questions. What exactly was this lever that stabilized space-time? How did it work? Was it a weapon? A power source? He was no closer to an answer than before. Alina couldn't afford to wait much longer. Each passing day felt like a countdown towards something inevitable, something they couldn't control. If they were going to stand a chance against the Tyrex, they had to move quickly. "We don't have the luxury of time," Alina said one night, her voice tight with frustration. "We need to hit them where it hurts, and we need to do it now, before they realize we're onto them." The plan they'd devised was audacious, bordering on reckless. If Singh was correct, then the mechanism that powered the blood price was housed in a secret Tyrex facility, buried deep within the heart of their territory. The only way to reach it was through a series of heavily fortified outposts that spread across the Tyrix-controlled sectors. Even their most skilled operatives had never returned from such missions. But there was no other option. "We'll need to strike quickly, hit them hard," Alina continued, as she mapped out their course on a holographic table. "Our best chance is to breach their outer defenses with a small, fast strike force. We get in, sabotage whatever we can, and extract the information we need." Sane's eyes were grim as he studied the plan. "It's suicide. We don't know where this lever is hidden. We're walking into the heart of their power." "I know," Alina replied. "But if we don't try, everything we've done so far will be for nothing. The Tyrix will just continue their game, and humanity will pay the price." Sane didn't argue. He knew the stakes. They all did. With their backs against the wall, they had no choice but to gamble everything on the hope that they could somehow outsmart the Tyrix. The next day, Alina's team, armed with stolen Tyrix tech and guided by Singh's calculations, set out for the outer reaches of Tyrix territory. They knew the risks. The Tyrix were omnipresent, their ships patrolling every corner of space, but there was no time to waste. The longer they delayed, the closer the universe came to its collapse. As they crossed into Tyrix-controlled space, the tension was palpable. Each moment felt like the calm before a storm. The team members moved in silent unison, scanning their surroundings with the vigilance of hunters. They knew that if they made even the slightest mistake, they'd be vaporized before they could even react. The first sign of trouble came when a Tyrix destroyer appeared on the radar. It wasn't close, yet, but it was moving toward their location. Fast. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they lock onto us," one of the crew members reported, his voice strained. "We need to move now." Alina's mind raced as she considered their options. They couldn't afford to engage the Tyrix head-on. Not yet. If they did, their chances of reaching the facility would plummet. "Prepare for a detour," Alina ordered, her voice sharp with authority. "We'll take the asteroid belt. It's a mess of debris, but if we're lucky, we can use it to cover our tracks." The team quickly adjusted their course, steering the ship toward the jagged rocks that littered the belt. Alina's heart pounded in her chest as they navigated through the debris field, the ship's engines whining as they dodged massive rocks and asteroid fragments. The Tyrix destroyer was closing in, but it was still too far to make an immediate strike. The team's ship weaved through the asteroid field, using the chaos of the floating debris to hide their presence. For a moment, it seemed like they might escape, but then the unmistakable glow of a Tyrix pulse cannon flared in the distance. The destroyer had fired. "Brace for impact." Alina shouted as the crew scrambled to make evasive maneuvers. The pulse cannon shot streaked toward them like a comet of death. The ship's hull groaned under the strain as they twisted out of its path. But it was a near miss. A second shot came, this one grazing the side of their ship. "We're hit," a crew member shouted as alarms blared. The hull was breached, and emergency systems kicked in, sealing off the damaged sections. Alina gritted her teeth, fury and fear warring inside her. They couldn't afford to stop now. "We're almost there," she said, eyes hard with determination. "Push through." With a final surge of speed, they broke through the asteroid belt and out of the Tyrix's immediate range. The destroyer didn't follow. They were too deep within the Tyrix zone now. But the encounter had left them shaken, and Alina knew the real battle was still ahead. They were on the cusp of reaching the heart of the Tyrix's power, the mechanism, and with it, humanity's final hope, or their ultimate doom. They had breached the heart of Tyrix-controlled space. Every minute felt like an eternity as Alina's team pushed forward, the ship's sensors frantically scanning for signs of enemy ships. Despite the harrowing escape through the asteroid belt, they couldn't afford to relax. They were in enemy territory now, and every second they lingered brought them closer to discovery. Sane had worked tirelessly to track down the coordinates of the Tyrix facility. a massive hidden structure buried deep within the gravity well of a gas giant. The coordinates had been nearly impossible to crack, but after days of decrypting Tyrix encryption, they finally had a lead. "This is it," Singh said, his voice a mix of awe and dread as they approached the facility. The gas giant loomed ahead, its swirling clouds of toxic gas and methane a natural barrier. The facility itself was hidden beneath layers of electromagnetic interference, making it nearly undetectable to normal scanners. But Elena was determined. "We're going in. No turning back." The team adjusted course, expertly navigating the turbulent atmosphere of the gas giant. The closer they got, the more dangerous it became. The planet's magnetic field interfered with their systems, forcing them to rely on manual piloting. Elena's heart raced as they descended, weaving between the giant's thick, swirling clouds. "There," Singh said, pointing to a small, nearly invisible dot among the clouds. "That's the facility. We'll need to land inside one of the hangars." Elena nodded, gripping the controls with white knuckles. "Everyone, get ready. This is it." As the ship descended further, the facility came into view, an enormous structure built into the side of the gas giant's core. The Tyrix had disguised it as part of the natural landscape, and it blended seamlessly with the surrounding clouds. But there was no mistaking the massive antennae and energy conduits extending from its surface. This was where the blood price was controlled, where the cosmic balance of the universe was maintained through humanity's suffering. The ship's landing gear clanged against the facility's platform with a resounding thud. Elena exhaled, her muscles tight from the tension of the descent. "Prepare to move out," she ordered. The team quickly suited up in their stealth armor, designed to mask their presence from Tyrix sensors. As they exited the ship, the sheer size of the facility was overwhelming. Massive spires of metal and glass rose around them, the walls pulsating with energy. There were no signs of Tyrix presence, at least not immediately, but the ominous hum in the air told Elena all she needed to know. The facility was alive with purpose. "We need to move quickly," Singh muttered, eyeing the complex's inner chambers. "We've only got one shot at this." Elena nodded. She had come too far to let anything stop them now. They moved through the corridors of the facility, their footsteps muffled by the advanced sound-dampening material in their boots. They encountered no resistance, at least not at first. But as they navigated deeper into the facility, Elena began to feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. There were no guards, no defense systems, no barriers. It was as if the Tyrix had already anticipated their arrival. "It's too quiet," one of the team members whispered, voice laced with suspicion. Elena didn't respond. Her mind was spinning, analyzing the situation, but every instinct screamed that something was off. They were too close to the heart of the Tyrix's operations. There had to be something waiting for them. Then, as they reached the center of the facility, the walls seemed to come alive with energy. The lights flickered and dimmed, and a deep, resonating hum filled the air. It was not the hum of machinery, but something else, something primal. "Get down," Elena ordered, pushing her team into cover as a surge of energy shot through the walls. Before they could react, the facility's core came to life, revealing its true nature. At its center stood an enormous swirling vortex, a singularity of light and energy, pulsating in a steady rhythm. Surrounding it were glowing conduits that fed into the walls, each one representing a different species suffering, their sacrifices feeding the mechanism that held the universe in place. The blood price was not just a toll for the Tyrix. It was a cosmic act, a sacrifice of life and energy that stabilized the forces of the universe, and humanity had been its unwitting contributor, the final link in the chain. Elena's mind reeled as she grasped the magnitude of what she was seeing. "This is it," Singh breathed, awe and horror mingling in his voice. "The source. This is what the Tyrix have been protecting." Elena stepped forward, her mind racing. They had reached the heart of darkness, but they had no idea how to destroy it. Disrupting this mechanism could unravel the very fabric of reality, and yet, allowing it to continue would mean more suffering, more lives lost to the blood price. We can't just destroy it, Alina said, her voice trembling. There has to be another way. The vortex pulsed again, louder this time, as if it were aware of their presence, preparing to consume them. The team stood frozen, trapped between the devastation they had come to end and the cosmic truth they could not yet comprehend. They were at the precipice of everything. The vortex pulsed before them, its swirling energy field bending light and distorting the air around it. Alina could feel the raw power emanating from it, like the hum of an unearthly heartbeat. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a cosmic force that held the fabric of reality together, tethered by the sacrifices of countless species. "We're running out of time," Singh said, his voice barely a whisper as he studied the array of conduits feeding into the singularity. "If we don't act soon, we'll be consumed by it, by the price it demands. This is what's been holding the universe in place." Alina's heart hammered in her chest. She had come here with one goal: to stop the blood price, to free humanity from the endless cycle of suffering. But the truth was far more complicated than they had ever imagined. This wasn't just about freeing humanity. It was about the balance of the universe itself. The blood price wasn't a tyrannical weapon. It was the mechanism that prevented the collapse of everything. "What happens if we destroy it?" Alina asked, her voice shaking with the weight of the decision. "What will happen to the universe?" "We don't know," Singh said, his face pale. "We've never seen anything like this before. Destroying it could cause the unraveling of space-time itself, a collapse of the fabric of reality. We could trigger the end of everything. Or," Alina said slowly, "we could let it continue, and the suffering would never stop." The team was silent, each member wrestling with the impossible decision before them. The Tyrex had manipulated this system for centuries, using the suffering of countless species to maintain control over the universe's delicate equilibrium. But to stop it now could have catastrophic consequences, more than just for humanity, but for the entire cosmos. "Are we supposed to be the ones to decide?" One of the crew members murmured, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Can we really choose to end the universe just to stop the Tyrex? What if we're wrong?" Alina clenched her fists, her mind racing. She had come to see the blood price as a symbol of oppression, an unbearable weight that humanity had carried for far too long. But this was a new truth, a truth that made her question everything. Was it really their place to disrupt the cosmic order, even if it meant ending their own suffering? "We didn't create this system," Alina said, her voice steadying with resolve. "We didn't ask for it. But if we destroy it, if we shatter the mechanism, we may be signing the death warrant for millions, maybe billions of innocent lives. We might save humanity, but at what cost?" "Then what do we do?" Singh asked, his voice rising. "Stand by and let the Tyrex continue to use us as pawns. Let them continue this cycle of death. You can't honestly think that's the answer." Alina turned toward the vortex once more, her eyes locked on its ever-pulsing glow. It was a paradox, a force that demanded life to sustain itself, suffering to keep the universe intact. Humanity's place in the mechanism was one of many, but it had become a burden too heavy to bear. But could she really destroy it? "What if there is another way?" Alina whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "What if we can change the system without destroying it? There has to be another path." As she stared at the energy vortex, something strange began to happen. The energy seemed to shimmer, a subtle fluctuation in the air. The conduits feeding into it were no longer just mechanical. They pulsed with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. "I think," Alina began, her voice trembling as an idea formed in her mind. "What if the answer isn't destruction? What if we can replace the blood price with something else? Something that doesn't require sacrifice?" Singh's eyes widened. "You mean, use the mechanism's power for something else entirely?" Alina nodded, We don't have to keep feeding it suffering. We can change it, redirect the energy, reshape it into something that doesn't hurt anyone. A new kind of balance. If we can access the control systems, maybe we can reverse the process. But the Tyrex control it, one of the team members objected. They've been using it for centuries. They'll never let us do this. We don't need to stop them all at once, Alina said, a spark of determination lighting in her eyes. We just need to stop it here. Right now. We need to break the cycle. And we need to do it now, before it's too late. The team moved quickly, following Elena's lead as they approached the central console of the facility. It was surrounded by shimmering energy fields, but Singh had anticipated this. With a few quick adjustments, he bypassed the Tyrex security systems, unlocking the mechanisms that controlled the vortex. For a moment, Alina hesitated, her fingers hovering over the controls. She could feel the weight of their decision pressing down on her. If they failed, it would mean the end of everything. But if they succeeded, they could rewrite the future. With a deep breath, she activated the sequence. The vortex hummed louder. And then, suddenly, it began to change. The pulsing energy became calmer, the violent fluctuations smoothing out. The conduits no longer glowed with the pain of sacrifice, but with a softer, warmer light. A new energy, one that wasn't born of suffering, began to flow through the system. We've done it, Singh said, his voice breaking with disbelief. We've changed it. The Tyrex's control over the blood price had ended. The mechanism, once a tool of oppression, now held the power to create harmony, without sacrifice. But Alina knew one thing for sure. The future was uncertain. They had taken a massive gamble. But whatever came next, they had changed the course of history. And that was enough.